What's going on, YouTube? Season 2 of Black Ops 6 is here, and of course that means we have a ton of new meta weapons. Weapons have been nerfed, weapons have been buffed, and sometimes it's hard to keep track. But that's why I'm here to bring you all those sweet, juicy meta loadouts. So today we are covering the top 5 SMG builds for Season 2 of Black Ops 6 Warzone. If you guys end up enjoying the video, be sure to smack that like button, hit the subscribe button, and ring that bell for notifications. Without further ado, let's get into our first build. Before we get started, I wanted to throw a couple honorable mentions at you guys, the first one of which will be the PP919. The PP919 is just out of the meta. It's a really good option at SMG, but it really just doesn't do enough damage. But it is totally serviceable, and if you want to try it out, this is the best loadout for it. For our second honorable mention, we're throwing in the Saug. The Saug has a ton of movement speed and does some substantial damage, but where it really falls off is its recoil. Not only does it have a ton of recoil, but it also has some weird iron sights, causing you to have to put an optic on it. But again, the Saug is totally serviceable, and if you feel like running it, here is the loadout. Now that we covered those, let's get into the top 5 SMGs for Season 2 of Black Ops 6 Warzone. Up first, we have a weapon that's been kind of teasing its way towards the top of the pyramid, the Kompakt 92. The Kompakt is a big old fast-fire SMG that has some fantastic movement speed. But even though it has a high fire rate, it still doesn't really have that much recoil, making it a beast at close range. So let's get right into the loadout. Up first, we're over to muzzles, throwing on the compensator, which is of course going to help us out with our vertical recoil control. Next up, we're over to barrels, throwing on the long barrel. Don't really need that much bullet velocity with this thing, so we're adding a little bit of extra damage range with the long barrel. Then we're over to under barrels, throwing on the Ranger foregrip, which will give us a little bit more horizontal recoil control and give us some sprint movement speed on top of that. Then we're hopping over to rear grips, throwing on the commando grip, which will give us some aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. And last but not least, we're throwing on extended mag 3 to get this magazine size up to 60, which is honestly huge for an SMG. Do not be sleeping on the Kompakt. It might not be too great on big map, but it is a demon on Resurgence. And now let's head over to our next loadout. Up next, we're covering a brand new weapon to Warzone, of course, the ppsh-41. The ppsh has currently been noted as the fastest time to kill for SMGs. But while it does kill super fast, it is definitely a little bit squirrely with its super fast fire rate. So proceed with using this thing with caution. So let's get right into the loadout for this thing. Up first, we're over to muzzles, throwing on the compensator, which is going to give us a whole bunch of vertical recoil control, which, trust me, is very needed. Then we're over to barrels, throwing on the long barrel. Just like the Kompakt, we don't really need too much bullet velocity, so we're throwing this on for damage range. Next up, we're over to under barrels, throwing on the vertical foregrip, which will help us out with our horizontal recoil control. Then we're over to stocks, throwing on the balance stock, which is of course going to help us out with all of our movement speed needs, like strafing speed and sprint to fire speed. And last but not least, we're over to magazines, throwing on extended mag 2 to get this magazine size up to 55. Whether you think the ppsh is meta or not, it is the brand new SMG in the game, so definitely give this thing a try. Now let's head over to our third loadout of the video. Up next, we have an SMG that's been just sort of off meta since the beginning of Black Ops 6 Warzone, the KSV. Like I said, the KSV has been just a little bit out of the upper echelon for SMGs, but I do think after this Season 2 update, the KSV truly feels like a meta weapon, especially with its fantastic movement speed. That's the most underrated thing about it. So let's jump right into the loadout. Up first, we're over to barrels, throwing on the reinforced barrel, which is going to give us help with our damage range and bullet velocity. Then we're over to under barrels, throwing on the Ranger foregrip, which will help us with our horizontal recoil control and a little bit more sprinting movement speed. I could not say that. Then we got a rear grip, the ergonomic grip, which will help us with our aim down sight speed, dive to fire speed, and most importantly, our slide to fire speed, which makes this thing super quick with its great movement speed. Then we're over to stocks, throwing on once again the balance stock, which will of course help us out with all of those movement speed needs. Last but not least, we're over to magazines, throwing on extended mag 2 to get this magazine size up to 50. I have a feeling that the KSV is going to be another one that people sleep on this season, but trust me, if you like moving and grooving through Resurgence, you need this KSV in your loadout. And with that, let's head on to the next loadout. Alright guys, now it's time to get real crazy, as our next SMG is a Modern Warfare 3 weapon. That's right, we're covering the Superi 46. I hope you guys remember this one, and if you guys were playing Warzone in Modern Warfare 3, you definitely remember it, as it absolutely dominated the last few months of Warzone with its super quick movement speed and tons of damage. And I'm happy to say this thing is 100% back. So let's get right into the loadout. Up first, we're over to muzzles, throwing on the the quartermaster suppressor, which is going to make us undetectable by radar and help us out with our horizontal and vertical recoil control. Then we're over to barrels, throwing on the bore 99 short barrel, which will give us a bunch of sprint to fire speed, aim down sight speed, and a movement speed. Then we've got an underbarrel, which we were throwing on the DR6 hand stop, which will give us a bunch of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. Then we've got a stock, and this is what really makes this thing a movement demon, as we're throwing on the Rescue 9 stock, which will help us with our movement speed, sprint speed, and even give us a little bit of recoil control. And last but not least, we're over to magazines, throwing on the 40 round mag to, of course, get this magazine size to 40. Now, they have fixed the sliding to firing delay that they had on Modern Warfare 2 and 3 weapons, which makes this Superi finally viable in Black Ops 6 Warzone. So have some fun and give this thing a try now. And with that, let's head over to the last loadout of the video. For our last loadout, you guys probably expected this since we just made a video on it. We have the absolute SMG meta, the C9. The C9 is beyond a do-it-all SMG. You can use it at almost any range, and it's pretty good at almost every range. And since it's buff in Season 2 to add a bunch of damage at all of those ranges, this thing is the absolute meta. So let's get right on into the loadout. Up first, we're over to barrels, throwing on the reinforced barrel to, of course, help us out with our damage range and bullet velocity. Then we're over to underbarrels, throwing on the Ranger foregrip, which will help us out with our horizontal recoil control and give us a little bit more sprinting moving speed. And next, we're over to stocks, throwing on once again the balanced stock, which is going to give us help with all of our movement speed needs. And last but not least, you could probably guess we're throwing on the extended mag 2 to give us a magazine size of 50. Like I said, guys, this C9 is the absolute meta, so if you're looking to get sweaty either on big map or resurgence, you need the C9 in your loadout now. So there you have it, folks. That is the top 5 SMGs for Season 6 of Black Ops 2 Warzone, including those 2 honorable mentions. You will absolutely love basically any of these builds if you try them out for yourself, which I highly recommend doing. Please, guys, try out some different loadouts. Don't just use one gun. Who am I kidding? I know everybody's gonna do that anyway. But I digress. If you guys enjoyed the video, do not forget to drop a like and hit that subscribe button. We'll be having the top 5 assault rifles coming out soon to you guys, so keep your eyes peeled for that. With that being said, we will see you guys in the next video.